Good morning, you guys. Welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. So, today is going to be a garden tour, and it's a little bit special because by the time you guys are seeing this, I will be home. But we are leaving tomorrow for almost 2 weeks on a family vacation. I have never been away from my garden this long, and I'm a little bit nervous about it. But I know how much everything can grow in 2 weeks. And so I thought we would take a walk around today and look at how everything's doing and just kind of gauge what's going on in the garden. And then when I get back, we'll come back out and see how much everything has grown. So let's go take a walk around the garden. The first thing I think we need to look at, though, is this gorgeous row of flowers. In one of the last garden tours I showed you, we had some flowers and there were tons of buds, and it has just become a glorious row of beautiful zinnias. So I'm going to bring you guys over and show you. Some of these are just the most beautiful zinnias I have ever seen. So we'll take a peek at some of them up close. I love these lime colored zinnias that have the pink centers. They're so pretty. Beautiful. Oh, look at this one. This is the first one of these to open. Isn't it lovely? Here is one I'm just obsessed with. This is the first one to open off of this plant, and it is even more beautiful in person than it comes through on the camera. That's so pretty. Oh, hello, friend. Our bee balm has finished for the year, but I think it's still kind of pretty with these little balls on it. It was glorious while it lasted. I'm a bit of a sucker for volunteer plants, if you haven't picked up on that by now. And I came through and weed whacked all of the walkways in this garden the other day, but I just could not bring myself to kill all of the zinnias. So we have zinnias growing in the walkways, and I just can't bring myself to care that they don't belong there. They're beautiful. Some of them have gorgeous flowers. This one has already started to fade, you can see, but it was just this beautiful deep pink color. And I can't wait for it to put on more flowers. It's getting more buds. In the last garden tour, I'm pretty sure I showed you guys that I had planted sweet potatoes, and they are looking really good. Last year, I had so much trouble getting my sweet potatoes to take because it was so dry, but this wet year has really helped, and they have grown, they've gotten new leaves, so I think we're going to have a great sweet potato year. This zucchini plant, I have no idea how long it's going to manage to hold on. I don't think it's even given me a zucchini, but it's about the only one of my plants that remains. All of our summer squash has been hit by the vine borers. That's to be expected, and I plan on planting some more, but I think I'm going to wait until after we get home because we have very little rain in our forecast, and I won't be able to come out here and water the seeds as much as I need to because I won't be here. So we'll just hold off until we get home, but we're going to plant some more summer squash. Moving on from the squash, you can see our eggplants are putting on fruit. We actually picked our first two eggplants the other day and had some eggplant parmesan for dinner. There's a really nice size one in here I need to harvest. See if we can get the leaves out of the way so you guys can see it. It's kind of hard, but it's right down there. I did bring a basket and pruners out so we can harvest some things. Some of these things will be much too large by the time we get home. So some things I'll take smaller than I normally would, but That's just the nature of trying to go on vacation in the summer. Y'all, trying to look at those eggplants, I was rubbing against these coriander seeds and they smell so good. I mentioned before that I had this volunteer maypop come up and I just left it alone and it's looking amazing. But I want to show you guys. I may miss them while I'm gone. But there are buds here on it. So there's going to be some beautiful passion flower soon. And the ever-present morning glories. That bindweed really loves to show up, but let's see. 1, 2, 3. Last year I got one flower on my volunteer maypop, so this is exciting to see so many flowers. Do you guys remember those sad little bonus tomato plants I had that I planted on this trellis because I had a trellis open? The tomatoes I'd planted on it died. They were so sad. They were a little bit yellow, very small. I can't believe what these plants look like now. So let's take a peek. I mean, this one is a good 3 feet tall and just beautiful, healthy green leaves. There are flowers all over them. And they have just done so well since we put them in the ground. Some of my cherry tomato plants are not looking super great, but they have some ripening fruit on them. Can you see down here? So hopefully we get something, and I need to do some pruning to get some of this unhealthy growth off. There's about a week in our forecast with no rain, and so it stresses me out a little bit, to be honest, because we're leaving, but I have set up irrigation throughout the garden to go off while we're gone, but it will be better for the tomatoes and things. The bacterial issues will be a little bit less at least. My tomatoes are growing. Got some there. I think this is the biggest tomato I have right now, and it's glorious. It might be right by the time we get home. But friends, look at what I just spotted. Ooh, I'm going to need to pick all of these because they will be overripe by the time we get home. But that one looks like a garden snack. One of my favorite things is to come out to the garden and eat cherry tomatoes. So sweet. I actually see some more cherry tomatoes that are ripe down here. These are some of my sun golds. While we're looking at the tomatoes, I thought I would mention to you guys, one of the things I'm a little bit nervous about with leaving is I have seen lots of people in my local gardening group on Facebook talking about the hornworms. I have yet to see any hornworm damage. The plants are just beautiful. I see no signs of hornworm damage. And I have a theory that I'm going to share with you. So I've read that basil and marigolds are great for keeping hornworms away. They don't like the smell. And there is so much basil in here because I just let the volunteers stay. If we take a look, you can see all of these basil plants underneath the tomatoes. Just all over the place. There's some kind of back in the jungle behind the tomatoes. And see how big these guys are. And so I think that that is maybe actually working. I do think there's probably a good chance we come home in 2 weeks and see some hornworm damage. But for now, I'm just grateful that they look so beautiful and are setting so much fruit. Here are my 3 tomatoes that I got most recently and planted, and they have probably doubled in height. They're almost tall enough for me to tie up to the cattle panel. I don't think they're going to make it before we leave because that would have to be by tomorrow morning. But they're so beautiful and healthy looking. I may have to come out here with some strings and tie them up. Ooh, gotta take a break for a zinnia, you guys. I love this plant. It's a volunteer and it's glorious. Here behind me, you can see where the potatoes were. This has some weeds that I'm going to pick here in a minute, but otherwise I haven't planted anything there yet. I am going to plant some squash here when we get home. I mentioned I think I probably just need to wait until we get home. Although I contemplated putting some seeds in and seeing if they would germinate if I put them close to the soaker hose. I'm going to have to think about that. Over here, you can see how well our Beauregard sweet potatoes are doing. They've really taken off. And right next to them is the empty space where our yellow squash was. These poor plants were just so eaten up by those vine borers. This little area right here is maybe my favorite spot in the garden at the moment. This pineapple sage has just gotten so big. This volunteer zinnia with the dill heads behind, I just love it. It's so picturesque to me. For those of you who grow pineapple sage, what do you do with it? I like to just come out to the garden and pick leaves and smell it because it smells like a really ripe, delicious pineapple, but I've never actually cooked with it. I just like it for the red flowers that it puts on in the fall and the pineapple smell, of course. Oh, it's so good. Our zucchino rampicante is doing really well once I got one of them to take off. Look at this guy. He's going to be a monster by the time I get home. And we have another one. Oh, there's another baby. Y'all, when I get home from this trip, I am going to start some cucumbers in the house from seed because our cucumbers just, as you know, have not done well this year. So I have these 2 trellises here with nothing really because the cucumbers just shriveled up and died. There's some basil, and thank goodness for my glorious volunteer green bean. Need to pick some beans today. We love cucumbers, and so we are going to start some plants inside and see if we can get some fall cucumbers because we just have not had enough from the garden. I see one right now that I'm going to pick off of that one gherkin plant that I have. I think it's a Parisian pickling cucumber. So that'll be like the 3rd cucumber from the garden this year, and that's all we've had. Last year, I had an entire drawer in the refrigerator full of cucumbers. So sometimes they just don't do well for you. But that's the nature of gardening. Some years things just have a bumper crop, and other years they just don't do well. So we're going to see if we can get them to do well for the fall. Let's see if we can get in here. This plant is not looking great. I have seen lots of cucumber beetles around, and I've been squishing them when I see them. But there we have a cucumber, the 3rd one of the year. I mentioned that I thought I would just leave the area where I pulled the onions and carrots out empty for now because we're going to do some fall planting in there. So I got a piece of landscape fabric and I've just put it down with some bricks to try and prevent the weeds from growing. But we'll probably start planting in here not long after we get home from our trip. So I'm excited to get things like rutabagas in. My understanding is that rutabagas take about 100 days. So that's why you plant them when they're really hot, but you want them to come to maturity as the weather's cooling off because that'll make the roots sweeter. So I'm excited to have space to do that. I've never actually had much space for a fall garden, so this is exciting. Here is my one really remaining squash plant, and it's got a yellow squash that we're going to harvest. I think that's probably my last yellow squash until we get some new plants in the ground. I thought I'd come stand here amongst my Dutch fork pie pumpkins so you can see how much they've grown. They just amaze me. They're so beautiful. I think they need some more fertilizer. You can see that the leaves are a little bit yellow. These are just growing like crazy. And I will bring you guys over and show you, we've got some baby little pumpkins on here. So I can't wait to see what those look like in a couple of weeks. We have butternuts that I'll show you in a little bit, but they have grown. Once they started, they just have grown so quickly that I feel like these are going to be probably double, triple the size by the time we get home. And you can see back here behind me, some of our green beans have reached the top of the trellis. And I've spotted a couple of green beans in there. There are definitely flowers, but not very many green beans yet. And the ones that are there are just teeny tiny little things. Let's see if we can find some of these little baby pumpkins. Here's one right there. I know I've seen a few. They're too small, I think, to have been pollinated yet. Like that guy is the size of a small marble. But hopefully they're going to get pollinated. Ooh, this plant actually has an open flower. That's the first one I've seen on these. So I did want to mention how we are watering our garden while we are gone. We have a couple of different timers. We have soaker hoses. It's a little bit of a crazy setup, and I will walk you through and show you a little bit of it. But here with these plants, we have a hose that comes in from a timer. It's connected to a soaker hose that goes back and forth a couple of times down the bed. Make sure the green beans and the pumpkins and the zinnias all get watered. And then it runs over into our disassembled green stalk. This is probably not the greatest setup for the green stalk, but we need it to be watered while we're gone. And so this is what we could come up with. So if you have a better idea, I would love to hear your thoughts, because we'll see how it works while we're on this trip. But if it doesn't work super well, we'll need other ideas for the future. All right, you guys, so let's talk about this watering system we have set up. Over in the original garden, I have a hose that comes in and is connected to a 4-way timer. I have hoses and soaker hoses run off of that 4-way timer to the beds over there. And then one hose runs over here to another 4-way timer. And we have it right here. You can see here how I've got a splitter off of one of those. That runs to our Dutch fork pumpkins and green beans and into this bed here with our peppers and tomatillos. And as we go down the garden, we've got more 2-way splitters and soaker hoses in our beds. And it just keeps going down the line. I have run this and tested it, and everything gets watered pretty well. So I'm hoping everything is going to do really well while we're gone, and we're going to come back to a beautiful, lush garden. But let's look at the plants that are growing, because I can't believe some of these peppers in here, y'all. Let's start with our Chinese multicolor spinach. It is getting eaten up by something. I'm not really sure what, but I actually learned years ago that leafy greens that have holes in them, they're actually more nutrient dense because they're putting out more micronutrients trying to combat the pests. Look at these peppers. I'm hoping they're going to be ripe by the time we come home, but not overly ripe, because look at how perfect they are. There's just so many of them. Our tomatillos have also started giving us fruit. Most of them are still pretty small in their husks, but I've picked a couple of handfuls of them, and because I only have a few, I put them in a Ziploc baggie in the freezer, waiting until we get more. So hopefully these are going to be ready for us when we get home. You can see how loaded with husks they are, but let's see if we can. There's a lot of space left in here. So hopefully things aren't going to get overripe while we're gone. This tomatillo is taking over my eggplant cage. But you can see in here, this eggplant has a lot of blossoms on it. And I think I actually see a baby eggplant in there. I've mentioned in the past that I have 2 tomatoes that are called Heat Masters. They are a hybrid that is designed to keep putting on fruit even when it gets really hot. Because if you don't know, Tomato blossoms get sterile somewhere around like 95 degrees and up. Well, we have had some very hot weather in the last week or so, up in the mid 90s. And on my other tomato plants, I can see where they've dropped some blossoms and didn't set fruit. But these guys, they are still going strong, setting flowers, putting on more fruit. And look at all the tomatoes on this plant. I do think that there are a couple that look like they're blushing a little bit. I'm not 100% sure though. Oh, I walked through a spider web. And here we can see the other plant has lots of nice little tomatoes on it. Look at all of our eggplant blossoms. I cannot wait for us to get home and see how many eggplants are on these plants. This plant right here is the one I have actually picked tomatillos off of. We'll walk around the side and I will show you. It has this one branch that has ripened some really little tomatillos. The rest have these nice big husks that we're just waiting for to fill out. I will go through these plants today and just double check and see if there's any more that I need to harvest and add to my freezer bag, because we don't want to waste any of our produce. Let's take a look at the other peppers. These are called an intuta and they're going to ripen to orange, but they're so lovely. They look like they might be starting to turn a little bit. So I think they'll be ripe by the time we get home. I looked online because I'm a little nervous about this. Ooh. Where's Zinnia's? And it said that peppers can take 2 to 4 weeks to ripen. Although I'm spotting, let's see if I can get this, you guys. Look, our first snacking pepper is starting to turn. This has become another one of my favorite spots in the garden. This loofah has reached all the way over and is all the way down to about my head height on the other side. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to end up really nice and full without having anything planted on the trellis on this side. But I didn't know that loofahs blossom more in the evening and overnight. And I came out here yesterday afternoon to do some watering, and I could not believe how gorgeous these flowers were. Oh, they're covered in ants. That's interesting. But they just have all of these clusters. This is all new to me and I'm very excited about it. But let's take a look at some of these clusters because I didn't know how loofahs grew. And if you have never grown them before, you might not either. Here is a really good example. That flower just fell off of one of these. But all of these are little buds, and I guess they get full size at different times. And so they'll just slowly open one by one. I think I'm going to have a jungle of butternut squash when we get back because it does not want to climb the trellis. I keep making it, but there are parts of it that have run all across the bed. And I have ended up letting them root in a couple of places because they have fruit on them. But look at this. This lovely butternut we have here. We come around this way. Ooh, there's another one right here. I think we're going to hand pollinate that one today. We've got one here. Dangling off the other side of the bed. So this would be a good time to talk about squash. If you don't know, squash has male and female flowers. So a male flower just has a regular old skinny stem on it, and a female flower has the baby fruit. And these plants, they do require pollination from the male to the female. So sometimes you can help them along, and we are going to do that today. We're actually going to tear this poor flower up, get our male stamen here, and just rub that pollen down into our female blossom. Y'all, I mean, it's basically plant sex is what this is, but that's going to make sure that our fruit develops. We love us some butternut squash, so we want to make sure as many of these butternuts develop into nice, healthy fruit as possible. While we're here by the butternuts, I thought I would show you. Here's one of my bush cucumbers I planted by the butternut. It's looking very healthy and starting to put on some flowers, so hopefully we're actually going to get some cucumbers. I planted a couple of sweet potatoes in here for them to just dangle off the side of the bed. And there's another bush cucumber next to the butternut. I maybe shouldn't have let these butternuts run across the bed, but I kind of love the wild garden, and so I'm very happy to have them do what they want to do as long as they give us some food. Here on the other side of the bed with our loofah are my wax beans. These are looking kind of sad. I did fertilize them, and if you've watched other videos, you've heard me say this new soil clearly has some deficiencies and we have had to fertilize everything. But I came out here yesterday morning, I think it was, and I watered them with some fish emulsion. So I'm hoping that that is going to help them bounce back and really just get a little bit healthier. We may have to add a bit more of a complete fertilizer to try and get them healthier because the soil, it's just a little bit lacking. I almost forgot to show you guys the fig tree, which you can barely see for the basil. I have pruners out here for harvesting, and I think I'm going to need to just do a major haircut on this basil. But look at how massive it's all gotten. And it smells so good. Now we can walk our way down to the other end of the new garden. There's a lot to show over here. We've got this bed full of green beans. These are our Haas Blaze green beans, our eucalyptus. This celosia has put out a ton of new little baby flowers. And let's see if we can get in here and get a good look. One of my black-eyed Susan vines has started putting on flowers, and they are just absolutely beautiful. Back here, this bed is a little bit of a hodgepodge. We've got basil and cosmos. We've got cucumbers and sweet potatoes. And growing up our trellis, we've got Georgia candy roasters. You can see it's doing a really nice job climbing. But just like our other squash, it wants to make a run for it and go across the bed. I spotted my first actual Georgia candy roaster squash yesterday. These Georgia candy roaster squash are so delicious. They're really sweet. And I'm hoping to get a really nice harvest off of these this year. But I love walking through this trellis. It's just so fun with the squash leaves. Here's a look at our Thunbergia. It's starting to climb really well. And hopefully soon I see flower buds. We're going to start having more flowers. Let's see. Oh, y'all, I just spotted even more Thunbergia flowers. Look at these Thunbergia flowers. Aren't they stunning? This is a variety called African Sunset, and I just love them. So now on to the hot peppers. There are so many peppers on these plants as well. So let's see if we can get down in here and take a quick little peek. These are my big gems. We will roast these up and use them like the canned ice cream chilies. So many flowers on the plants. Baby peppers. This one's got some damage. I need to take it off. Our jalapeno plants are loaded. They're just really little at the moment. Oh, this weed. Y'all, does anybody know what this is? I need to do a Google search, but I have picked hundreds of these out of this new soil. I normally get them before they're this size, but sometimes they just kind of blend in and I miss them. So I'm not really sure why exactly, but I have always struggled with growing poblanos, and we love chili rellenos. So poblanos are a thing we really hope to have a lot of. And y'all, I think this is the year. Look at how full these plants are. There's just so many. Our serranos are also loaded with peppers. Do you see all of them? And so many flowers. My cayennes as well have started putting on little babies. This one has just got its first flower buds up at the top. I accidentally purchased a seed pack that was a variety pack of cayenne peppers. It said it had yellow and red and purple, and I think there were some like bigger varieties as well. And so you're just kind of rolling the dice when you plant those seeds. And I think that this one, looking at its leaves and everything, I think that this one must be a purple one. But I've never grown a purple cayenne before, so I'm excited to see them. Y'all, our okra is growing nicely. I'm very excited to see this. I actually saw my first flower bud the other day. So there's probably going to be some giant okra on here by the time we get home. I did want to show you, one of my okras is a little bit too close to my Georgia candy roaster. And look at it compared to the other okra. It's so little. I'm thinking about cutting back a few of the leaves on the Georgia candy roaster so it gets more sun. The last thing to look at here in the garden is our ruby fig. It has all of this beautiful growth here at the top and a little bit farther down. But just in the last few days, it has started putting all this growth out down its trunk. You can also see all of our basil here around it. But I'm so excited to see what this is going to look like in a couple more weeks, because these, once they started sprouting, came out pretty quickly. So I think all of that growth along the trunk is going to develop soon and robustly. So that's the garden as it stands today. I am nervous about leaving it, but I am very excited to see what it looks like in a couple of weeks. I think now I'm going to go harvest the things I need to harvest, and I will come back and show you what we're walking out of the garden with. Well, I've been through the garden and harvested now, so I thought I'd show you all what I got. I picked a bouquet of zinnias and basils and my first eucalyptus to put in here as well. This smells so good. I've never had fresh eucalyptus in the garden before, so this is exciting. And on to the edibles. I picked 3 eggplants. This was the one I knew I was going to pick. And I went ahead and picked these because I think in 2 weeks' time, they might be overripe and I would hate to waste them. So I'd rather we actually eat them while they're smaller than not be able to eat them at all. I picked a few serrano peppers because I think I'm going to make us some pickled eggs today that can sit in the fridge while we're gone. That way they're ready for us when we get home and we have some convenience food items. The yellow squash that I think is probably the last one until I plant some more. Some chocolate mint, because I love that in my tea. Dill, this will go in our eggs as well. My one sad little cucumber. I'm telling you guys, I'm savoring every single one that comes out of the garden. Got a small little handful of cherry tomatoes. These are going to be delicious. Most of them are sun golds, which are my favorite cherry tomato. I also picked, I don't know how well you can see this in my hand, but I also picked about a tablespoon of coriander seeds. They go in our spicy pickled eggs, and I love that I can just come out to the garden and grab some. So last but not least, I have a handful of green beans from my volunteer plant. It'll be nice to start getting green beans off of the plants I actually planted, but I'm really grateful for that volunteer because we would not be eating green beans yet. So thanks for hanging out with me today, you guys. I'm really glad you were here. I hope you enjoyed this garden tour, and we'll be back in no time to see what it looks like once I get home from my trip. Bye.